I am doing great. It's just another sunny day in beautiful California. How are you doing?
Man, I'm wishing I was in California because all we see is rain, 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 darkness, darkness,
Oh my
darkness.
gosh. So you kind of have to create the sunshine in your mind.
I know, and it's been terrible because you can really tell people are suffering from a lack of vitamin D because we have had it's several months now where it's been really dark and cloudy, and we've had nonstop rain. So you can tell that it's weighing on people's
It
mood, and and
does.
you become tired. Your body doesn't function, and we so desperately need vitamin D, and I think. Um, that a lack of vitamin D might also be a cause of a lot of illnesses. So we might have to look into that with Adam one day.
I think Lou mentioned a connection with
I
that.
don't remember. See, when I do the readings, I don't remember what comes through, and I don't like watching myself. So I usually don't rewatch them because I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Vitamin
oh
D
Lord.
is important, and so is the sun. I mean, it's just really, you talk about people who are happy they have a sunny disposition. Too much time in darkness really does that.
It does, and I can feel it. I'm struggling as well, and so is Gerald, and the kids are kind of easily prickled and stimulated to
Yeah.
go into kind of an attack mode. They've been attacking each other very much lately, and it's been very hard. But I know that the weather has something to do with it. We've had storms too, very windy days. Well, I think a few days ago we had a storm, and unfortunately a lady got crushed in her car when a tree fell on top of it. And luckily we didn't have damage, but you could see everything was blowing all over the place. So I was a little worried. But we got through it. We got
So
through it. So
that
I was
was
like,
the day.
I was like, come on, Adam. I was like, come on, Adam. Come on, Eric. Come on, everybody. Protect this house. Protect this house.
Was that the day that we rescheduled to today?
Yes, yes, that
Yeah.
was the day. And we've been having more and more of these days, which is usually, we get them, but they're very rare. But they're getting worse. So you can definitely tell that the weather patterns are changing, for
They
sure.
are. Wow, you just feel like they're going to pick up your house and you'll land in Kansas. In our case,
If you're
how
gonna
lucky
pick
we
up
would
my
be.
house, if you're gonna pick up my house, just put me straight back home. I'll be fine.
It would be so much more convenient for all of our subscribers if they would just land you in Kansas.
Or I'll just land in California and we can have that
There
event
you
right
go.
away. There you go.
There you go. So we can
I
do.
can hear Adam giggling. He's just saying, "Hello, Bob. I love you."
Hi, Adam. Love you too. So
He's been talking to you a lot lately, just so you know.
that Adam
He's
has
been,
been talking to me a lot.
yeah, he says he's been communicating to you in your dreams.
He has been. What I'm getting is that the seventh anniversary of his transition is coming up this week. So he's really coming in, and I think what he wants to do is really just hunker down and connect with me to really dial into the shape of the book. In other words, to finish creating the skeleton, so I just have to hang the meat on it, if you will. I mean, it's like this book is like a living entity. It's amazing. You can just feel the energy in this thing. So yeah, I do feel him coming in to work with me on that. And there's some amazing energies coming in. We've got a Leo full moon and some eclipse energy coming in on the 31st.
Okay.
So I think we're in for a really powerful 8 or 9 days with Adam. And I'm really looking forward to see what happens with this. Hi, folks! Welcome to another episode of Chillin with Adam. I want to thank you guys for sending in your questions. So I think our very next session, we're going to do a Chillin with Adam episode, Advice from the Astrals. So we'll be answering the questions that you have sent in, and I plan on publishing them around February 1st if we're able to get them answered for you next week. So today I am really excited to share with you our special guest, Richard Pryor.
Yay! Adam's going, yay! He seems to love his kind of humor, straightforward. You either like it or you're not. Fuck you if you don't like it.
Absolutely Adam's kind of humor. I bet those two are having a ball. I am so jealous.
Adam says that, yeah, they've been hanging out and sharing energies, and he's saying, believe it or not, but we're very similar. He says, I've always enjoyed that kind of humor, and I've always enjoyed him. But I never thought or knew that we were that close energetically. We all have vibrations, he says, and every entity, every individual consciousness, he says, is vibrating at a certain frequency, and I really align with his frequency. Although he has a completely different life story than I do, that just proves to you, he says, that we can be completely different and still be completely the same.
Really? That doesn't surprise me at all, because I really know how Adam was. Very sensitive and very affected by the world around him. And he really needed humor to survive.
He says exactly. And Richard, that was the same thing. Humor was his way of trying to survive. And I'm going to let him explain to you and tell you his story. But this is truly a story of survival, and let's just have him share that story with you.
Okay. Hi, Richard. Thank you so much for coming.
He's saying hello, ma'am.
Yeah, just call me Cindy.
He says, okay, I'll call you Cindy. He's kind of wibbly. I don't know why he does that. He's just kind of wibbly. He's going, okay, so this is the first time that I'm speechless. I'm trying to think what I should tell you. He says, because I want to look like I know everything, he says. I want to look like I've evolved. He says, okay, well, what can I tell you? Yes, Adam, I was going to say Eric. That's just because Eric is standing right next to Adam. Eric's saying hi, by the way.
Hi, Eric. I love that guy.
He loves too, he says.
I know. He's my trainer in the astrals.
Yeah, he says he's been working with you. Not in regards to the book, he says, but you've been undergoing some shifts, he says, and he's been working with you. Okay. Now they're both like going like this. They're just kind of leaning on top of each other.
They do that often.
You're confusing me.
They do this tent pole thing where they lean together on each other, like holding each other up. It's funny.
They're just leaning towards, like, on top of each other. They're literally holding each other, but it's like a friendship kind of thing. It's almost like they need to connect. They need to touch. In order to feel that relationship, in order to feel that connection. So it's kind of fun to see, because they both have great big smiles on their faces, and both their hair is kind of messy, so I don't know why. It's been messy.
It amazes me, though, how a handful of different people describe them the same way. And neither one of you have heard each other's description of the way those two are together. Allison describes them the same way. Baker describes them the same way. You describe them the same way. My friend Carrie describes them the same way. I see them the same way. It's just so freaking cool.
It just creates a confirmation for you as well. It's just, I don't hear what other people say, so I just kind of go off of what I see, and it's nice for me also to hear, that they project themselves in a similar way to everybody, so that's kind of cool.
They do, and I know they're loving Richard's energy. Okay, Richard, I know that he's a shy, serious guy underneath it all, and I want you to share just what you're comfortable sharing.
he says, people know me as this very loud, honest, straightforward, fuck you kind of guy.
Yep.
That's how people know me, he says. But really, deep inside, I was a very lost individual into the experiences, he says, as a human being. I was good at making people laugh and making people think, opening people's eyes, confronting them with the reality that are going on around them at this moment, and seeing the humor in it.
Yeah.
But when it came to my personal life, I was a train wreck. I felt that I didn't belong here, and I really didn't feel like I ever lived at all. And that really takes a toll out of you. It really takes the energy, the life force out of you. And so humor, what I did in comedy and the movies was the only thing that kind of kept me going. It was the only thing that truly kept me alive, because what a lot of people might not know is that I had suicidal thoughts from the age of 20 all the way to the age of 40. I had so many, and even probably after that, he says, I had a lot of issues that I couldn't let go, had a lot of issues that I couldn't process, he says, and because they always, those energies of undealt trauma, the energies of feeling abandoned, the energies of not feeling love and not understanding love, because I never understood love. All of that, I dragged that with me my whole life. I never released it. I never processed it. I never talked about it. So I never really sought for help or advice. I was very introvert. And I was an individual that when these negative vibrations became so high, I would disappear for several days. That was my way, was running and hiding, trying to not kill myself, and then coming back and trying to continue. And, that led, unfortunately, to a lot of failed marriages. It led to me being a father to a lot of children who I either treated not in the appropriate way. I would say I was too strict. I would threaten them. I would tell them, if you don't, if this doesn't go that way, or you don't do this, I'm going to kick your ass. There was a lot of threats, and he says, looking at it now from a different view, from a spiritual perspective, you do get a whole different interpretation of who you were and why things were happening the way they were. You don't judge it anymore. So I don't judge it anymore. I have found peace with it, and I have found love in my journey, he says. But when you look at it from my human perspective, it was such a struggle. That I really didn't enjoy life. I'm going to be honest with you. I might have been the clown of the ball, but I didn't enjoy living. I truly didn't. Looking at all the women that I married, that I had relationships with, and there were lots, he says, and the reason why I just couldn't do it. I had 7 marriages with 5 different women. Most of my marriages didn't last more than a year. And so all of that, really, the lack of being able to show intimacy, the lack of being able to understand what true love is, really led to all of that. And every time I failed, it just highlighted the illusion that I had that I wasn't worth the love, that I wasn't worth, you know, to have self-love even. You know, I just wasn't worth anything. Just to give you an insight on where this dysfunctionality, I don't even know if that's a word, but that's what he's making me feel, like not being functional in a relationship, came from. He says, I was born in a very kind of violent environment. My dad was a very aggressive person. He was a very physical person. He would beat me whenever he felt like it, whether I had done something wrong or not. If he was drunk, if he was upset, if somebody else did something to him, he would come home and he would work it out on me. He would beat me up. My mother was also a drunk. She was an alcoholic. She would hit me as well. She was very physical. My mom disappeared a lot of times. She would disappear for weeks, and then she would come home, you know, drunk, broken. My father was drunk and broken, and so as a little boy, kind of, you know, going, never getting a hug, never having anyone tell you, I love you, experiencing your reality. Hold on, I'm going to say that a different way. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. So he says your reality of family life becomes getting hurt, getting beat, going to bed hungry. You know, that was my reality. That was what family looked like to me. He says on top of that, my mother was a prostitute, and my dad was a pimp, and my grandmother, Marie, had a brothel, and that's where my mother worked. My grandmother was also very abusive. He says she would beat me as well with the slightest. Couldn't say anything. I just had to nod and be quiet.
Wow.
And he says by the age of 7, he's showing a man raping him in the brothel.
Aww.
And he says, you know, the scariest thing, you know, you would think that being raped at the age of 7 was the scary bit. But he says the scariest thing I ever encountered was, God, I'm almost crying. His emotions are just over the top.
God, no kidding.
Oh, God. Ooh. Okay, I'm going to try and do it without crying. He found a box underneath his mother's bed, and when he opened it, there was a dead baby in the box. And so the baby was his little brother, and she had kept it there, and it made him feel in some way relieved that they hadn't killed him at birth.
Oh my God!
He said in the other way, it made me feel so afraid that I might not make it out of this family alive. So
Oh my God!
I lived in constant fear. I lived without an inch of knowledge of what love means, of what love was. And so as I grew older, I lived in a neighborhood where there were a lot of gangs. And, you know, I was thin, I was skinny, I didn't have any muscle to defend myself. So I discovered that the only way I could defend myself was being funny, using humor to get my get my black ass, he says, out of there.
It's a
Those are the only
survival
things that I
skill.
can do. So, um, so my mother left when I was at an early age, and so I eventually ended up just being with my grandmother in that brothel, seeing things, you know, seeing white people, white men coming in, raping the black women that were in the brothel. You know, as a young child, those are just things that you shouldn't see and that you shouldn't hear, and you just don't overcome that. You just don't. It is something that is imprinted, you know, in your mind, that whenever you close your eyes, I would re-experience it, you know, and I did for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So I tried to get out, he says. I tried to get out, went into the Army. He's like, boy, that was another mistake I made.
Yeah, where did you spend most of your time in the Army?
He's laughing at that one. He's saying, well, you know, I figured the only way I can get out of here is by going in the Army. You have no money, you got nowhere to go, you got no support, you know, and you just want to get the fuck as far away from your home as you can get.
That was a brilliant choice.
That was, yeah, it was a choice that was based on fleeing. It was, get me out of here. That was it. And so I joined the U.S. Army. For 2 years, I was in the U.S. Army, but that didn't go so well as I planned it, he says, because, you know, by that time, I was full of anger. I was full of hate. I hated everyone. I hated myself. I hated the world for what it had done to me. And I was very much into that victim phase, you know, and I never got out of it. I always stayed in that victim phase. And so, okay, so he says he went to, he was stationed, or they had to go to Germany, is what he's showing me. And so, okay, so there was a few colored people, black people. He says, you know, I don't use the word nigger anymore, he says, like I used to. And so I guess there was an incident, is what he's showing me. I'm just trying to see what happened. He's just showing me like a little YouTube video in my head. Okay, so it looks like he and a few others attacked a white soldier. Caucasian, I guess is what the English word is for. Oh, okay. So he was expressing racist remarks while they were watching some kind of television show, he says.
He being the white man?
Yeah. The white soldier, the Caucasian soldier, was expressing very racist remarks while they were watching a TV show. And I guess the black people, the black soldiers, did not appreciate that, and so they actually attacked him with knives, almost killing him. So he got thrown into an army jail for the whole 2 years that he was supposed to be stationed there.
Right.
So when he got out and he returned to the States, he moved, he says, to New York. And that's where everything kind of began, where everything, you know, where I tried singing, and I tried some acting, and I tried doing comedy, but I seemed to have more success in the comedy department than I did in any of the other ones. You know, people didn't want to hear me sing. But, you know, so I started that, and it just kind of built from there. And although it started giving me success, at the beginning, you're starting to get recognized, you're coming on TV, and it was all very clean then. It was all, according to the books, according to the rules of comedy. Because back then, comedy in the 60s, he says comedy, there were restrictions to it and there were limitations to how far you could go.
Right.
So I behaved very nicely, he says, and I try to use my past, to create the comedy. So everything that I ever used in my stand-up comedy shows was always based on what I've been through. And so I did that for several years, he says, and I became very successful. But it never, it never filled, and it never suited. That's not a word. He's making fun of me. He's like, you Belgian, you. Okay, so I think what he's trying to say is it never calmed down the anger. It never, how would you say that? It never softened the anger. It never released it. So the anger was always there. The frustration was always there. The trauma was always there. And I was just hiding. I was just hiding behind a smile. And there was a point, he says, where, I could have continued the way that I was doing things, but there was a point in my life, in my career, where I just got on stage and something clicked in my head, I just got this idea that, what the fuck am I doing? That was the idea that popped in my head. I was trying to be somebody else. I was trying to please the crowds, to please the white people, to please the black people, to please everyone. But I was doing it not in my own way. I was doing it in a way that was in some way or form copycatting other people, copycatting other comedians. So something clicked on that day, and I literally I came on stage, it clicked, and I walked off stage, and I disappeared for several months.
I remember hearing about that. It wasn't just any stage. It was in Las Vegas, and there were members of the Rat Pack in the crowd. So, it was a big deal. But you know what?
Okay.
What I remember most about that, how freaking brave is it to do that and then go off and regroup, find your voice, and come back? You are the comeback kid. I am so proud of you.
He says, yes, I needed that time to figure out, who am I in this whole comedy thing? And how can I contribute to, creating happiness, creating laughter, but not just that, also creating awareness of what was going on, creating clarity, because when shit hits the fan, he says,
yes,
in the world,
and there was a lot.
The first reaction of people is, if I don't look at it, it's not there. They try to hide from it. They try to ignore it. It's not there. But what stand-up comedy does, he says, and that is for all comedians. Stand-up comedy is usually people who are sharing personal experience in a funny way.
Right.
And that's what stand-up comedy does. It opens people's eyes, it brings awareness, and it confronts people with the truth.
It does.
Confronts people with the reality, and it makes people think. It makes people think, and it also, in some way or form, we kind of lighten the energy around very serious, events.
Right.
Every event that is being perceived from individuals as bad, as heavy, will also, will grow in that heaviness, in that lower vibration. That energy gets fed and fed and fed about them, from the millions of people who are saying, that's bad. This is, frightening. I'm afraid of this. So we take a simple event, and us as human beings, we blow it up with negative energy because we're constantly feeding it.
Right.
And I think what we do, and I know that's what I did for sure, was basically, you have this, he says, I see, things that go wrong in society. It starts off with a little blister.
Mm-hmm.
And the blister fills with fluid, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I tried to do was pop that blister and say, this is the reality. Look at the pus that's coming out. Now, what can we do about it? We kind of elevate the frequency from going from very negative to saying, this is kind of funny if you think about it. We elevate the energy to a more positive, vibrant energy. And therefore, all comedians really help the world to become more positive, to see things, from a different perspective, to really see truth in what is going on instead of the truth that social media or that government or the news want you to see. They put things together in such a way to make you even more fearful, and we're looking at it going, nuh-uh, that's not how it is. We look at it from a positive perspective in some way or form and just confront people. They don't expect it, and all of a sudden, boom, it's right in your face. Now, what do you do with it?
That's right. I mean, you just say it like it is, and you get all the people involved in it to sit next to each other and laugh about it.
Exactly, and he says it doesn't just say with laughter. They literally go home thinking about what was just said, thinking about that different kind of perspective. Look at it from a different point of view. Look at it from a funny point of view, and it won't seem like such a bad thing. It won't seem so hard and heavy to deal with if you look at it from a very positive, kind of funny, humoristic kind of way. So I think that was one of my biggest contributions, he says, to the world of comedy. I was the first one who said, fuck, nigger, screw you, let's talk about sex, let's talk about vaginas, let's talk about whatever we want to talk about. I opened that gate.
You did. The doors came flying off. Just blew the doors off.
Stepped away, he said, I stepped away from the traditional limited kind of comedy, and I blew it all up, he says. I didn't give a shit, I needed those several months off to really realize that as long as I'm trying to be somebody else, I can't even find happiness in what I'm doing. And I was already not happy who I was. I was already not, dealing with trauma, and not understanding living at all. Mm-hmm. But humor made me happy. But I still, as long as I did what I loved, but I needed to be restricting, I restricted myself. I didn't get the fulfillment of what I was doing. And that was the only thing that I did find some love in, that I did find some positivity in towards me. So I decided after several months to screw it, let's just be myself. Let's say it the way I want it to say it, and either people are going to boo me off stage or they're going to love it. It's going to be one or the other. And so that was the best choice I made, because being true to who you are and just saying it the way you say it, not worrying or not being concerned about, hey, this could go completely the other direction, and I could be thrown into jail, and who knows, because all that stuff went through my head. I could go to jail for profanity, for you didn't do that in those days. The good thing was, it was the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, that was a time of renewal. It was a time where people were fed up with everything, and they really wanted change, and they wanted, freedom of speech, and they wanted freedom to protest, and they wanted, there was a
Right.
lot of stuff going on, and so I showed up at the right time. I showed up at the right time, when people wanted to hear the truth, and when people wanted to laugh with, the whole mess that humans create, because, I know I'm a spiritual being, and I should be saying, oh, everything is bliss and everything is the way it is. But you know what? The truth is, people, as human beings, we fuck up. We fuck up. We fuck up for a reason. There's always a purpose behind it. There is. But when you're in your human condition, it just feels like everything's screwed up. And so the best thing we can do is make fun of it, laugh with it, create comedy around the conflicts that really bring us down, and elevate that energy, that negative energy, into a positive energy. Because now every time, you look at, they make fun of the Korean leader a lot, and they make fun of what's going on everywhere. And then, you look at the news and you go, oh God, this is bad, and, you feel depressed. But then we start talking about it, and so every time it comes on the news, you'll remember us and our funny remarks about it, and it won't seem so bad anymore when you see it over and over and over again on the news.
That's true.
So for me, that was, comedy was the only way that I felt that I could be truly myself, and it was the only time, when I got on that stage, everything else faded. It was the only time where I wasn't confronted with my trauma, with, the feelings of abandonment, with not knowing what the hell I was doing. Of course, every time I get off stage, you get hit in the face, with reality again. You kind of, being on stage, and I think a lot of comedians will testify to this. When comedians are on stage, they're in their zone, and everything around you disappears, and you're loving what you do, and you're getting this adrenaline shock of the people's energies who are laughing and are just applauding, and that's heaven right there, getting that energy back and so on. But as soon as we go back into our daily lives, we don't do so well. Comedians usually don't do so well, and let me explain to you why that is. Most comedians are funny because they go through hell in their life, because the comedy comes from pain. It is a therapeutic way to deal with the pain. And so if you look at comedians, they usually struggle in their personal life. They usually struggle in their personal life, with relationships, with other things. There's always a struggle. And so comedy becomes kind of like a drug. You get addicted to it, and you just want to keep doing it. Now, for me, I mean, it was the 60s and the 70s, so there was drugs all over. That was the normal thing, okay?
Yeah.
People, I know for the new generation that seems hard to comprehend, but in the 60s and 70s, there was drugs everywhere. You couldn't not take the drugs, it was just everywhere. It was considered normal. It was considered part of the revolution. So, that's how it started for me, but the drugs never ended for me. I was a heavy drinker. I was a heavy smoker, and I did cocaine like there's no tomorrow. So whenever I was in my personal life, I wanted to escape the pain. I wanted to escape the memories. I wanted to escape all that I was. And the only way I could do that was by getting all the substance abuse. It was my way, he says, of escaping the human condition. When I was on stage, I was in my spiritual condition. I was in my spiritual being. I was being who I was meant to be. But when I got off stage, the separation between Richard, he says, and my higher self, that separation of not feeling and not understanding who you truly are, just really pushed me down the rabbit hole, of alcohol and cigarettes and drugs. And I did that for a very long time, and so, that didn't help the relationships either, he says. But it was my way. I lived my life that way. It was my way of dealing with reality.
What a hard way to live. So real quick, I just want to ask Adam and Eric if they will go next door and play with that gentleman's dog to keep him distracted, because I can hear the dog next door. Adam, please go quiet that dog. See, he's quiet now.
Yeah, I ask them sometimes. Sometimes I try to communicate to him. I go, "You're okay. You're safe." Sometimes I try, and it works. Actually, it works.
Yeah. Well, I asked Adam to go throw a pair of socks for him because the socks don't make any noise when you throw them. So, okay, Richard, we're going to keep talking. You guys keep that dog occupied. Thank you, Eric and Adam.
Just keep playing with him. It's just something I don't have under control, unfortunately, people. I do apologize for that.
Well, we'll use earbuds next time, just in case he barks. This time, we're sorry. Okay.
Yeah, you'll still hear it. So, okay. I got ready to connect to Richard. Okay, so he's just basically saying that everything, because he's talking about he died. Okay, so he had a heart attack, showing me the heart, and he's saying, believe it or not, but being confronted with death actually felt like a relief for me. It didn't feel frightening. It didn't feel like, oh my God, I gotta get healthier and I gotta stop smoking and I gotta do this and that. He's just making me feel like actually the idea of death and being released from all of this trauma felt like something he was, he wanted to go towards.
It was appealing for you?
Right. He says, yeah, because, I did have a lot of suicide thoughts, and I did struggle with that. And, there was a time where I got really badly burned and injured, and, I almost died, and I was it intentionally? On the one side, no, and then the other side, yes. I just wanted things to end. Success and people loving you to bits, and, it does heal you. It doesn't heal you. So whoever is out there who believes that if they become famous, it's going to fix you, I'm here to tell you it's not. It just screws you up even more because you put even more pressure on yourself. Because, you want to do better and you want to do the best you can and you don't want to get judged. And it just adds more stuff, to the cocktail. I was just like a Molotov cocktail ready to explode. That's basically who I was. And so, I did try to commit suicide a few times. I did lit myself on fire.
I can't even believe that. I mean, God, what were you thinking?
Well, he says, I saw this video on the news of this Tibetan monk or this Buddhist monk, wasn't Tibetan, he says, Buddhist monk, who was protesting and actually lit himself on fire from protest. And he just sat there. He was in a meditative state. He didn't even move, and the dude was on fire, okay? And that's when I got the idea. I started playing with this, having kind of an exit to look up to. And I know that sounds weird, but that's kind of where the idea came from. And so there was a time where, I poured alcohol on myself and lit myself on fire.
So you literally expected that to be your grand finale. You thought you were going to die.
I wanted things to end, and looking at that picture, at that video, and seeing that dude was just sitting there, not even moving. He had his eyes closed. He was in a meditative state, and he just didn't even move. That, for me, it just looked, and I know that people are going to say you were crazy, and I was, but he says, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue there. I was fucking crazy.
Right.
But it just, for me, his death looked peaceful because he just sat there.
So he did die?
Wave his arms and go, oh my God, it's hurt. He was just so peaceful when he was doing it. And I don't know how he did it, but he did.
So the dude died. He died.
He died. He burned it to crisp.
Holy shit.
It was on the news at that time, and so, yeah, he's saying, the dude burned to crisp. Look it up on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it'll be up there somewhere.
No, don't try this at home.
Yeah, don't try it at home. He says, don't do it. I tried it. It doesn't work. And then, so there was another occasion where there was another fire where he almost died, he said. But, damn me, I never died.
No, and then you came back and made fun of it.
I came back, and the only thing I could do was make fun of it, because,
Jesus.
Fuck, can't even do that one straight, right?
He did. He literally, Emma, he lit a match, and he's going like this. What's this? Richard Pryor running down the street.
So, yeah, he's saying, that's the only thing I could do, is really make fun of it, but...
The comeback kid. You are amazing. I mean, so resilient. You might have fallen down, but damn it, every time you got back up.
I got back up for a little while, and, eventually everything caught up on me, and I became ill, and I got MS, he says. And it didn't even surprise me. I was just, I was done. I really was done. I really wanted to go home. I wanted this stuff to end, and although I had children and I had, I was married till the day that I died for the second time with one of my wives.
You married two of them twice.
Yeah. Yeah, he says Jennifer was we married once before in the 80s, and then we remarried again, and she stuck with me, or she see
what I'm saying? The comeback kid. The dude got the same women to marry him twice. Come on. Now that's saying something.
But although I had that, and I had the children, and I had children from mistresses and girlfriends, and
right.
Some of them were from wives, some of them were not. I had my first kid when I was 17. So yeah, believe it or not. So family life was just never what it was supposed to be. Not because of my family members, but because of me. I was the problem.
Well, your definition of what family life was.
Exactly.
That's all you knew.
Was so screwed up.
Right.
In regards to what a family should look like, what love is, that I never fitted in. It just never seemed to work out. And although I love my children very much, and I love all my wives very much, and I am watching over every single one of them now, and now I know what love is. I know, and understand it into the core of my being. It is who I am. I am love, he says. And so I see things so much clearer now. But back then, it just didn't work out for me. Family life just wasn't meant for me. And, I was supposed to really, my original plan for my life was overcoming the trauma by using humor and really healing myself from that. But I didn't allow myself to heal. So that was a free will thing. That was a choice that I had made, because in some way or form on a subconscious level, allowing yourself to say, you know what, it was fine, and I'm good, and it's all good, and kind of overcoming that. Although I did reconcile with my mom, to a degree. Um, it was so deep inside of me. I mean, it was literally into my DNA, of the things that I went through, that it was, if I would have said, it's done, we're done, it's no longer there, it would have almost felt like I would have betrayed. And I know that doesn't make
Your
any
own
sense.
history. No, it does make sense to me. It really does.
It's almost like it would erase your whole being.
Right.
Who you were.
So,
And don't forget, all of my material for my career came from that pain.
absolutely.
So if I would have solved the pain, I would have had nothing to talk about.
It was your survival skill. I mean, so Richard, there are lots of people that are here right now who have had tragic pasts, who've had pasts very similar to yours, where they've never been shown love. They don't know love. And they're just steeped in all this pain. Can you throw out a lifeline to somebody who's feeling like that? How do you come back from that without actually leaving?
He says, well, the thing is first of all, you have to accept that you're not going to come back from that. But you also have to see that all of that created this beautiful, loving person who is here right now. So you need to see that, and that's the weird thing about it. A lot of people who went through similar things like me, they never take away your heart. They never take away the hope for love. They never take away the love inside,
Where there's love, there's hope.
Yeah, it's always there. It's always there, but when you go through that trauma, it's so hard to reach it. Because it's like you have to go through a million doors to get to it. Yeah. And so if you had a traumatic past, if you've had abuse, if you've been raped, whatever it might be, if you had parents, who tried to kill you, there are people out there where they have parents who tried to kill them, or who abused them, or who put cigarette butts on their skin, yeah. People do crazy things to their children. I want you all to know, he says, that your past does not decide who you become. Only you can decide that. And so, in some way or form, I needed to learn to embrace my past and say, you know what, yes, shit happened, but look at me now. And I needed to develop self-love, and I needed to develop self-respect. And you know what? Self-love is not about looking yourself in the mirror and saying, oh boy, you look pretty today. That's not self-love. Self-love means you are grateful that you're here and recognizing that you have something to offer, that the world needs you in some way or form, whether that is falling in love with a person, whether that is being helpful to others, whether that is making them laugh, in my case, The world needs you and you need the world. Doesn't matter what it did to you. You decide at a certain point. As a child, you don't have a lot of choices. But when you get to that point where you take control back and you say, okay, I'm in control now. I make the choices. Don't do what I did. Don't hide. Don't run from it, but confront it and say, you know what, my past, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, I am not going to allow you guys to decide who I become, to decide whether or not I feel love. And you reinvent yourself. He says, yeah. Okay, he's using me as an example. He says, Emma. Okay, so some of you might know I was raped as a child by my grandfather, and it really it took away a lot for me. It took away, it introduced me to a lot of fear. I didn't trust people one bit. I didn't like people anymore. I was very much on my own. I was kind of a loner, introvert. I started to hate myself. I had a lot of suicide thoughts. I struggled with life immensely. And so I think what he's explaining is what I did. There was a point where I said, okay, now you jump out the window and get it over with, or you do something about it. And so I decided to do something about it, and I took myself out of the equation, and I basically took myself out of my normal environment where all the shit had been happening for years and years and years, and I fled. I got on an airplane, I flew to America, and I rediscovered myself. It was only temporarily, I was only there for a little bit, but being on your own, away from where everything always is there, that energy just sticks there,
right?
And putting yourself in a new environment and just being able, it was just me. I had to make the decisions now, and I wasn't, I didn't have my parents to rely on because, believe it or not, I didn't pick up a phone until I was 17 years old. I couldn't go to a store and ask for a loaf of bread until I was like 19. I was terrified of people. I never went out. My parents would always go out, do something. You're young. No. I want to stay home where I was safe. I was terrified of people. So, all of a sudden I decide from being terrified, not being able to communicate with a stranger, and I decide the next day I'm getting on an airplane. Never flown before. I get myself out of the equation, and I'm confronted with strangers, and there you are. You have to talk to strangers now because otherwise what are you going to do? So,
wow, and you went to another country.
Yeah, I went to the States to find myself. And so, there comes a point where you have to say, enough is enough. I will not allow you to destroy the rest of my future. There needs to come a time where you take back what is yours and you say, you know what, I'm a loving person. And I'm going to make my future the way that I want it to be. And I'm going to try and create it. And, things hit the fan after that, too. It was with ups and downs. But I made a choice not to allow others to hurt me anymore. And I forgave them, and I embraced my past, and I said, you know what, I'm going to use all of that pain that I experienced and all of those experiences, and I'm going to make sure that I help people who are going through the same thing, or I will help them prevent it from happening, And so it became my mission to use my pain for the benefit of others. And I think Richard did the same thing. He used his pain for the benefit of others. Only in his daily life he couldn't apply the same thing.
Right.
And it took me several years to get to where I am now.
No
but
kidding.
I did. I said enough is enough. I want to be happy. And, things go wrong. My husband almost died twice. He had 2 strokes when we were just married. My kids have autism. It's really hard to communicate. Stuff happens. But I don't see it as, oh my God, negativity coming at me. I just go, not fun, but tomorrow's a new day. Let's look at it from a different perspective.
Right.
And that's what he's trying to say is that you decide who you become, and you decide what you allow yourself to feel. I allowed myself to stay in that darkness. But I'm here to tell you that anybody has the strength and the power to rise and go towards the light. All you need to do is make that decision and take action. That's what you need to do.
That is great advice. Make the decision and take action. I love it. Well, you're
That's
an
what
amazing success story, Ms. Emma.
Well, I still have my ups and downs. We're still human beings,
And
but
we always will.
yeah, it's just about choosing not to stay in the darkness. And you can have a whole bad day. Give yourself a day, stuff hits, stuff goes wrong. Give yourself a day to vent and let all that energy out and cry. But in the morning when you wake up, you just say, new day, new possibilities, new future to create. And you start over and you let it go. It's about not getting stuck anymore. That's the trick. And living one day at a time. Learning mindfulness for me really saved my life, and just taking it one day at a time and just trying to see magic and beauty in that day.
Well, I am very grateful that you found that place. That
Me
you're
too.
sharing the beauty and love you found inside with the rest of us.
Aww. Well, I'm just happy that I get to help people and kind of give them the support and the love and the insight that, what happens to you doesn't have to define you.
That's absolutely right. I love it. That is a beautiful message. Richard, thank you so much for coming. I am ever so grateful that you came here and spent time with us and were willing to talk with us. And I am so happy that Adam got to hang out with you, because I know that he just had a great time.
He's saying, I'm just happy to hang out with him because, I think he missed out on the career. He should have gone into comedy because, boy, he does have it inside of him, he says.
It was wicked funny. He still is wicked funny, by the way, but, I have to experience his humor a different way.
It is. It's changed, he says, but he says your son, his humor comes from a point of love, not from a point of pain.
Right. That is just beautiful. Okay, so folks, we're going to say goodbye today until next time. So the very next time, we're going to be answering the questions that folks are sending in. They're adding up, but go ahead and send them in. We will answer as many as we can. I think we talked maybe 10. You thought we could probably handle 10 in an hour, so we'll see what we can do.
It depends on how long Adam's answers are.
Well, Adam was a man of few words. He's not terribly long-winded. He can say a whole lot with very few words. So, it's going to be really fun to see how this goes, because this will be a first for us. We have not done it. We talked about it, and we just kind of let things evolve, and it feels like now is the time. So we'll go ahead and answer, as many as we can next week. I plan to publish them around February 1st. You can continue sending questions in, because after we answer this batch, we'll do another batch of questions in another few weeks. So we're planning on maybe like once a month.
Hey, Cindy, why don't you share with people your website?
Okay. Our website is...
Share the website, Mom.
www.adamsgift.net. That's our website. This is where our blog is. This is where you can read a little bit more about Adam. This is also where I do share our YouTube videos, and I often transcribe, part of the conversations, the more poignant statements. And you learned a little bit more about Cindy and Adam, who we were. Stay tuned for the book, though, Adam's Gift. Really working hard to get that out for you by this summer. And, Emma and I are talking about some special surprises, too, that may come down the pike. So we'll just see what happens. But, there's a very real possibility of some Chillin' with Adam live stuff happening in the United States in the near future.
Yep, we're working on it.
That is so awesome. Okay, everybody, bye. You guys have a beautiful week, and until next time. Bye. Bye.